Hello folks, welcome to InDesign. So we are going to learn how to create a layout in InDesign, and I'm going to take you through it step by step. InDesign and Illustrator are very similar in some ways, but we're going to talk not just today but other days about how they're different. So I have InDesign open. I'm going to go and say File, New, Document. So when you look at this window, you probably don't recognize these sizes and their points and picas. So I'm going to start by going to Print because you're going to be working with the tabloid. That's 11 by 17. So I'm going to click on the tabloid and then I'm going to switch from picas to inches. So you see 11 by 17 shows up. I'm going to change it to horizontal. I want you to click off facing pages, and in future lessons I will discuss that more. And then I want to show you here margins. So you see all the margins are the same, and this lock here makes them all the same. So if I change this to 0.75, for example, or 6.5, sorry, it changed them all. So you can use the manually putting in a number, or you can use the arrows. I'm going to unclick this and I'm going to change the bottom margin to 0.75. You have freedom to choose what margins you want, but this is a good place to start. And then I'm going to hit create. So here's my blank canvas here. What I want to do, I'm going to adjust things here so you can see my screen in this viewing window here a little bit better. And if I scroll down, you can see my margin at the bottom is a little larger. The pink line is the margin. The white end is the page. I have my ruler showing. If you don't see your rulers, and if you don't see this responsive bar here, to see the responsive bar, you want to go to Workspace, Essentials Classic. To show the rulers, you go down under View, and you are going to go where you see rulers, and if you're not seeing the rulers, it would say Show Rulers, and you click, and it will show you the rulers. So I am going to, you see my arrows on the ruler, I am clicking with my mouse and dragging, and I can bring over a vertical line, and I can do the same thing up at the top. And then to remove them, I just drag them and take them off the page. So I want to create a grid that covers this whole thing, an even grid. And I'm going to show you a little cheat way to do it. Instead of dragging all these lines across, I'd have to figure out the math to make sure that each box was even width. So the cheat method is I'm going to go to the text tool. So you see this T here. I'm going to click on the T and I just drag. And this gives me a text box. You can see the cursor flashing in there. From here, the menu at the top is generally self-explanatory. However, this is a type box and I would think I would be going to type, but it's considering it an object. It's a box. So I'm going to go to Object and I'm going to go to Text Frame Options. Okay, so I'm working with text and I'm going to create multiple columns in this box. I want to create the number of columns I want to have is 6, and the gutter is between the columns, little space between the columns, and I want you to make it 0.25. So when you see this image on the left, when I hit OK, sorry, I hit something wrong. What did I do? 0.25. I'm going to say OK. So it made that column a little bit bigger. The default is too small, so you want to make it 1/4 inch. So I've moved this box up to my margin and I'm going to drag it all the way down and top to align with my my pink margin. So this gives me this grid right away. So this is a great quick tool instead of me trying to figure out where all of these should go. So I'm going to do this one more time so that you see it again, but also I want to create a horizontal grid. So I'm going to go to the text tool. I'm going to drag down and create a box. I'm going to go up to Object, Text Frame Options. This time I'm going to make it 4 columns. And again, I'm going to change this gutter. So the way it's narrow there, I'm going to change it to 0.25 and say OK. So now I have this box, and so it's given me 4 columns, equal columns that fit within this box. Notice when I hover over the corner, I get this rounded arrow. I want to swivel, so I am going to hold down the Shift key. In Illustrator and InDesign, whenever you swivel, or if you're, stretching something to be a different size, scaling it, you want to hold down the Shift key. So I'm holding my Shift key. So you see when I lift my finger off. So I'm going to lift my finger off my mouse first, and then I'm going to drag this to the pink margins like I did before. Okay, so now you see I've got this wonderful grid line here. And so I'm going to click up in the corner. I'm holding my mouse down. I'm going to drag. So I just touch these two boxes. With InDesign, you don't have to grab the whole object to select it. You just need to grab a portion of it. And so I've selected both these text boxes. And I'm going to go out to Object, and I'm going to say Lock. So what it did, you see this little lock symbol here, so that while I'm working, it won't be shifting around on me, okay? So I am going to go and place an image, which is, you start out just the way you do with Illustrator. So I'm going to go up under File, Place, and I have a folder here of all these different images that I've picked. So grabbing the first one, I'm going to grab this picture of a bar cart. So when you click something, I'm going to click and drag it right away. I mean, not drag it, just click. This came out at 100%. If I want to scale it, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and, actually, let me not do that right now. What I'm going to first show you is I'm going to click on this with the black arrow, which is your selection tool. Now I'm going to switch to the direct selection tool. And when I click on this, see this little hand, I'm going to move this around, okay? Notice how I've got this gold line when I've got the direct selection tool, and it's moved it around and it's cropped it off. So this blue line here is the perimeter of the window that this picture's in. And when I move this around, you can see how it's fitting in this window here. I want to bring your attention up here where it says 100%. So it's giving me the dimensions of this particular box. And then the Y is, this is giving me the dimensions of the box, and the X and Y coordinates are giving me the coordinates on the page. So what I want to do is I want to make this box smaller. So I can go into this and move it down to 50%, or I can go and change the percentage manually. So what I want to do is actually have this fit within this these guidelines that I have here. So I probably want to make it fit up to a lot smaller than this. I'm going to make it go to 50%. So sometimes I just go to quick percentage and then I look at it to see how that looks. Okay, so I'm going to switch my arrows now and go grab this blue box so I can give you a better sense of how this cropping works. So I'm going to move this in here. So you see the way the selection arrow and the blue line lets me crop in on this, and I can move this back out. And then when I switch to the direct selection tool, you see that gold box, and I can move it around in there. See, it sort of grays out. Well, it did that a moment ago, which was helpful to see where the picture's being cropped. So it's this window that's cropping in here. So this is a lot easier than Illustrator. If you remember in Illustrator, you put the picture and then you create another box over it and you have to do this clipping math. So it's a little confusing switching back and forth with the two arrows, but you will get it pretty quickly. So one of the things I want to do, I'm like futzing around here, I'm going to crop this in this box here. I'm going to pull this box into my grid lines. So the reason why we have these grid lines is to give us a place to sort of ground where this image is going to be. So I'm going to lift this up a bit to crop it here, and I'm going to move this blue line. So I'm moving it within my grid lines here. So it's even with the top and bottom, but the sides, you can't always get it to coordinate and fit within the grid line in both dimensions. But so now I have this, and I've gone and I've, played with the gold line and the blue line. I've gotten this moved in here. So say I decide I actually want it to be bigger. It's a lot of work going back and forth with those tools. So there is another way. I'm going to click on it right now. And on my Mac keyboard, it's Command, Option, Shift. So I'm hitting those 3 keys. It's Command, Option, and Shift. Whoops, I accidentally scrolled my mouse, which I didn't mean to do. Now I'm going to click on my mouse and drag. So what happens when I am holding down these keys, it allows me to move it all at once and not have to do the box first and then what's inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to let this go. And now when I click in here, you can see that my image is 91%. So it's not 100% anymore, but this is great. So this is my first image. So I am going to unclick it. Make sure you don't have it clicked, because otherwise when you put a new image in, it'll fill it in the box. So I'm going to go up to Place again under File. I'm going to find something else to place in here. I've got some pictures of some rooms, so I'm going to choose this room. Oh, there's this really pretty room over here, this tulip room. I'm going to say Open, and instead of just clicking and letting it go, this time I'm going to click and drag, and as I'm dragging, I'm looking at my guidelines here, and I'm going to make it the width of this guideline. Sorry, it's a little finicky while I'm recording. There we go. So here is 2 images that I have within these guidelines. So I'm going to scroll out here a little bit for you to see how I'm working with this. So you can see these images are filling in to this page. So it doesn't mean much to you right now. Let me go, and now I'm going to grab that blue chair that you've drawn. So I'm going to unclick, go back up to File, go to Place. I have my blue chair right here with my clipping path saved as an EPS file, and I'm going to hit Open. And I'm going to click and drop it, and so that placed it in here at 100%. Notice that background is magically gone. So when you created the clipping path, you could see that background, but when I place it into my InDesign file, and if I were doing this in Illustrator, the same thing would happen. It eliminates this background, okay? So when I do my design, I can move this in so it feels like it's overlapping something, which works nicely. Oops, I accidentally slipped it out of the box there. I can open this, drag it up, open. I can scale it, so I'm going to click on it, hold Shift, Command, and Option, and then I can shrink it down without losing the proportions of it. One thing I might want to do, instead of having it over on the left side, because you want it to face in like it's a conversation piece and not, if I put it over here, it looks like it's facing out of off the wall. So I can flip this image. So I'm going to go up to Object, Transform, Flip Horizontal. So that's an option that you have too. And then I can put it down here, or I can overlap it. So I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm going to unclick, and I'm going to place some other items on the page. One is this chair here, which I think is a really lovely chair. Notice I'm dragging when I put it in here so that it doesn't end up going 100% being too big on the page. So this chair is really lovely too. And the lines of the chair is something I'm interested in. So having it in this boxy box thing here, I don't want that. I want to see it silhouetted the way the blue chair is silhouetted. However, look at this picture. This I could very easily go and silhouette using in Photoshop the object selection tool, because the background is the same as, it's different than the chair, but it's all consistent. There's not a lot of stuff going on. So where when we did the clipping path on that blue chair, there was a blue background and all this stuff. And if you tried to use the silhouetting tools in Photoshop, they wouldn't be as efficient. but with this, it would be completely efficient. So I'm going to pause and open up for a moment so you'll see. Actually, I don't even need to pause, sorry. I have a new window right here. So I have been doing some work here. So I have my layout that I've put some different images in here. What I want to do, going back here for a moment, so you can see these lines here. If I hit the W key, I hide those lines. So I like to go back and forth looking at my layout, see how it looks, how harmonious it looks, but then I like to look at the lines too and use those. So going back to this layout I've been working on, so if I hit the W key, you can see my grid. So I'm going to point out here, zooming out sometimes it shrinks down too fast. I have this aligned up at the top, almost aligned, scoot it up there, and then I'm following a grid line over here. Down on my chair, I've got this sitting in the corner of the grid lines over here. My bar cart, I have it aligned at the top, but I have this extra space over here. And the reason why I do is it just let this opening be here. It made it feel freer and not so squished up. I'm gonna hit W again. I'm gonna move this over and hit W again. So you can see it feels like it's too pushed over to the side. So the reason why we have these guidelines is to help us organize things, but not to feel like it's something too rigid. So I'm going to just eyeball it now and just move it over so it feels comfortable to me. Now, what I have here, hitting the W key for a moment, notice that I'm not aligned here. I aligned with the bottom of this picture. Let me move this out of the way for a moment. I aligned the grid here, but not here. I aligned this at the bottom, so it's even with the chair. It's feeling like there's this nice baseline. But notice the space here on this side. It's equal to this 1/4 inch. So visually, this pacing works. So if I hit the W key, it's got the same amount on the side over here and over here. So it's got a nice balance. And I could have moved this wallpaper up even here, but again, it feels too squished up here. So I eyeballed it and I brought it down. And so I'm looking at a couple things. I'm looking at this open area here because you want it to flow, have this white space sort of flowing here. But also I want to look at the way it overlaps with this chair. So I might be looking at that there's not an awkward spot that it's overlapping. And I feel like right here is kind of nice. Yep. So back to this chair. So I was looking at this chair and trying to figure out how I wanted to do this, and notice it's so blocky. It just blocks too much stuff here. So I have gone and I'm going to go to place, and I have made a version of this chair that I silhouetted and I saved as a PNG. So a PNG is a lowish resolution file that is a transparent file. So when I place this in here and drag it, it is silhouetted. If you were to save it as a JPEG is also a lower resolution file, but it flattens it and you lose that transparency. So I have this chair here and I can look at, it's kind of cool having it actually go off the page. I kind of like that because it just, if I didn't do that, let me bring it up here. It's too high here. It's blocking some of my image. So then if I hold Shift, Command, and Option and shrink it, it becomes a little small. Maybe I don't like it that small. One of the things that's happening too, there's a lot of clutter here with the books. So maybe what I do is I move it down so it's not clutter the books, but then it's adding this awkward space. Maybe I overlap it here where there's more white space. Maybe I move it up here, but then it's sort of awkward. So I kind of liked the way it ended up being here and being bigger. So it had more dominance. The shape of the size of this back of the chair balanced out and didn't compete with the books as much. and I don't need to see as much of those legs. So when I pull it down here, actually I start to see the top of that bookshelf, and I think it was stronger hiding that. So maybe I'm looking now at this corner over here, and so maybe I move that over to break that edge there, and I kind of like that. So it's noodling it and figuring out what I like. I might in the end say, you know what, these books are too much, and maybe I move that up and it opens it up a little, but maybe I leave it there. So you're making your own individual decisions, and I accidentally moved that around. So now the other thing that I've added here is the text. So a room for relaxing with family and entertaining with friends. This is the text that you need to add. So I have tried to integrate it into this space. Some people just keep it as one line and put it up at the top, and it becomes too much of a rigid anchor sometimes. One of the things I might want to do with this, and I might need to make it bigger to do that, but I could drag this down over top of this white here, right? So because this is a pale background, I could potentially have this text on top of here. But I feel like I would need something up here because it's this big white space, and then I've got text over top of my picture, so that's not working. So I'm doing Command Z to bring my text back. I also want to point out that I played with the emphasizing some words. You can play with capitalization, you can play with color, and you don't need to emphasize relaxing and entertaining, but that's what I decided to do. You might want to emphasize family and the word friends. You might not want to emphasize anything, but you will want to select some interesting fonts. So to create this text, I showed you how to create text boxes earlier. So I'm going to go back to my T tool. I'm going to click and drag, and then I'm just going to copy this text here. And if I hit the W key, you can see my text box here. So I'm going to click in my text box to get that cursor showing up, and I can just paste that text. So I pasted that text, and then I created a second text box, and I typed out entertaining with family and friends. So in selecting the text, I then select the text, and you can go and search for different fonts that you like here. I do have another video that you can go and search for different Adobe fonts in a separate video. Notice it's not showing up when I select, it was not showing what's down here, the semi-bold. It's showing now because I'm just selecting semi-bold or semi-bold italic, but if I select both of them, it's not showing anything because I'm selecting two different variations of that font. I'm going to delete this. So I've got this text as a color, and how I got this color, I'm going to grab my text, and I'm going to grab the eyedropper tool, and I can grab a color. So if I do this, it created a color that I grabbed from here. So I can go and then I'm going to open up the color palette here. So you can see my text is the blue, the outline is none. So I can go, if I actually use the eyedropper, I can select this text here. Notice it got rid of the entertaining not being italic anymore. So I'm going to select that, use the eyedropper, and grab the font style. So the eyedropper is great because you can use it to grab a color, but you can also use it to grab styles of different text, okay? So that's really nice. So if you do several different things with your text, you can go and grab it to create some more text. And then if I don't like the color of this text, say this light was too light, I can go in here and adjust my scroll bars here. The other thing is, while I have it selected, I can grab my eyedropper again, and maybe I select a different area of that chair, and I get a different variation of that color that I liked. So I could look at it. Maybe I like having them two different colors. I don't like them being these two different blues, but maybe I grab this And maybe I'm going to grab this gold color. That might be kind of interesting. I actually don't think I love it that much, but maybe I would use that gold color right here for relaxing. Grab that. And then I can say with friends and family. So I love the eyedropper. But I don't like the way that looks, so I'll go back to the original. But you can get the idea of different things you can do. So you can put in here lots of individual things, or you can use photographs of rooms. So I've got 3 photographs of rooms. I've got 2 images silhouetted. I've got some wallpaper back here. The other thing that I want you to do is not just have this text, but to add a little bit of more text. So maybe what I'm going to do is say living rooms. You know what? Maybe I'm going to say like Benjamin Moore blue velvet 2329 color, you know. So you can, maybe I'll say walls in Benjamin Moore, blah, 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 and ceiling in Sherwin, I'm such a bad typer. White Dove, you know, 3341. So whatever you want to do, you can put some text in here. So it might be, you know, advertising what this chair is, or saying that something about the designer. So this text right here, when I look at the size of it, it looks a bit small in this layout. I think I might make it a little bit bigger. But one of the things that happens when you're working on a laptop, my laptop is particularly small, is that text that's 12 point actually is quite a comfortable size. So I'm going to change this and leave it at 12 points. Actually, I might even make it 11, which seems quite small here. But if I were to print this out, it wouldn't be that bad. And I'm playing with the line breaks here. And I've got typos all over this. And William should be, sorry, I don't want to make you watch me fix all my typos here, but you should fix your typos. So my page here now is, what is the size of my page? If I go, you can't see it here. I'm going to have to scroll my page up. So now on the lower left, my page is at 75%. So if I click here, I can make it 100%. So now I'm going to go back down here so you can see the size of my text at 100%. So this text actually might feel a little bit big. I think it's probably fine. I made it 30 points. You would probably stay in a range between 24 and 42 points, and your smaller text could be in a range between 11 points and 16 points. So that's a good place for you to start. But one of the things that would be helpful to you, and we're not in a classroom to do this, but at some point it's good to print out your stuff, because you're looking at a screen all the time. And I've had numerous conversations with your studio teachers, and one of the things that we do talk about is printing and the sizes of print projects. It's true that you will, in many cases, be printing out your work in large format, but sometimes you are still printing it out with something that you can hand to people. Even in our digital world, you would email a PDF to somebody of something, but when you have a meeting, you would actually leave them something that's printed, because people do want something that they could easily mark up. it's just, we're not in a total digital world anymore. So this is completely valid to be looking at it this way. I'm going to zoom out here now. So I've got this little box of text and it gets so small that it turns into gray here. But so you should have just one looks a little bit odd, so it's nice to balance this out. So I might put something, whoops, over here to wrap around this chair a little bit, and it might be something about who designed this chair. And it could be totally made up text. And actually, I think I don't like this text sitting right there. I might want to put it over here. Or the thing that might be a lot better is that I put the text in these white areas and it can sort of fill up this white area. And so I would, if I'm putting it up here, notice that I'm keeping it the same distance as the width here, or I might align it with the bottom. So you want these extra little bits of text to be quiet. You don't want them to compete with what's happening on your page. So let me shift up here a little bit so I get this more fitting on the page. So you can see we've got this heading works. These little bits of text are quiet. I'm thinking this feels pretty good. So hopefully you guys enjoy doing this project. I want to see you really get excited about it and put things in here that you are enjoying. Oh, one other thing that's supposed to be in here that I haven't talked about is some graphic element. So you can do something that's paint swatches. One of the things I might do, for example, is this wallpaper here. Maybe I would do some sort of, with the pen tool works in this program just like it does in Illustrator. So I can't draw this flower that quickly, but so say I go and I draw some image here, and I'm gonna have to work my screen in here a little bit, moving things around here for you, sorry. There's all these things blocking my view to move my cursor. Okay, sorry. Here, switching things around here. So I wanted to grab this shape and I wanted to access a color. And so here, maybe I just pull this. That's an awful color. Maybe I play with the gold. I can use the eyedropper and grab gold. Maybe this is where I want gold. So I have just drawn this terrible shape. It means nothing, but maybe what I do is I have drawn some sort of lovely flower, which I'm not gonna make you watch me do, but let me copy and paste and just grab this, and I can free rotate it. So pretend that I'm creating a daisy here or something like that. So you can use the pen tool in this program. So there's my, I'm gonna select all three of these shapes, copy, paste, rotate. So tool's very similar to Illustrator. And so I joined this, which is really quite ugly, so not a good example. But so here could be my graphic piece here, and maybe I put it down over here on the chair and it becomes like a little logo or something. So it can be something that comes from the pattern that you did. You can just take that artwork that was what you did from the previous project. Your wallpaper in here could be from your previous project. Just something that's a little graphic element so you learn how to enhance and use the different tools that you've learned. Okay? Good luck.